right, so today we're going to be talking about the best way to run the ball on the double mug meta. As you guys know, this mid blitz, whether it's the cover 0 version or they want to run the cover 3 zone blitz out of nickel dog 3 buzz, with all these players that are going to be lined up basically in between the offensive tackles, this is going to make it very, very difficult to run inside zone. It doesn't matter if you put an extra tight end on the field. It doesn't matter if you run a pulling guard run, because you can't pull guards with everybody blitzing through the middle. You're going to constantly have players in the backfield. You also factor in that read and react AI is still very much a thing in this game. Even if you do find a decent run, a lot of times you can only call it one time before the game will auto run commit and auto shed against that run the second or third time that you call it over the course of an entire game, which that's another rant for another time. But I am going to talk to you guys about the best run scheme that you can call against this. So we're going to let the cat out of the bag right off top. Outside zones from shotgun. Outside zones. Now, the best one in the game is going to be the bunch tight end. Now, I got a couple of housekeeping things I want to talk about here first. First off, if you guys missed yesterday's YouTube upload where we talked about how to block the double mug blitz meta, I did a fantastic video talking about how to never allow an interior rusher through the middle ever again when facing this blitz. Also, showed you guys a bug that resets your slide protection, so you guys will want to make sure you guys go back and watch that video. Now, in terms of this run right here, this halfback off tackle, this might be the single best run in Madden 25. Now, if you guys don't run the Seattle Seahawks offense, which you can find on my strategy website, gridirongameplans.gg, the way that you're going to search your playbook is to go to concepts. You're going to go to runs. You're going to then look at the outside zone tab. And ideally with this, you are going to look for anything that has either a fullback or is labeled gun sweep, gun off tackle, gun outside zone. And you're going to want to call this with your running back being on the same side of your quarterback as the quarterback's throwing arm. I know this sounds really, really weird, but if you guys run these runs, you'll get immediate control over them so you can cut inside or bounce outside. If you guys run this away from a quarterback's throwing arm handedness, meaning that if I have a righty, the running back's on the left hip of the quarterback, the game will put the running back on train tracks and you will not receive control over him. That said, it doesn't matter if you want to run this to the other side. It's still a very good run and it actually blocks very, very well. So let's go ahead and talk about it here. So here we are in the double mug meta. As you guys know, this is the most popular defense in the game, and a lot of players are going to famously stand over the center. The reason the off tackle or the outside zone is so good compared to, say, an inside zone is that on the inside zone, with us having basically 5 players in between the offensive tackles and only 3 players in between the offensive tackles from an offensive perspective, to block those 5 players, you're always going to be looking at trouble. And even if they do block it up correctly, that means that they had to leave the edge unblocked. And you see right there that this ends up being a bad snap. So again, it's the presence of these 5 players wedged inside of the offensive tackles, and you just can't run an inside zone against this. This is fine from a football perspective, but again, the problem is because we had to wedge down to block this, now we left this player on the edge unblocked, and this ends up being an easy tackle off the edge for a loss. And you would say, okay, well, obviously there's some issues with the block targeting here. What if we go ahead and subtract that wide receiver that didn't crack down from the equation? So let's go ahead and motion Wilson out. And you say, okay, well, now this should block differently along the front, correct? No, not exactly. Again, in this case, you're always going to be tackled off the edge. Now you might say, all right, well, let's go ahead and run something with an extra tight end. That would help, right? You would think it would. Now I'm going to run an inside zone here, and I'm going to motion a tight end to the point of attack. So we're going to take this player across. Now, the other issue you're going to run into oftentimes is that with this being a man-to-man blitz more often than not, that means that the guy guarding the tight end is also down in that area. So you're just adding an extra player that's a coverage player into the box when you do this. And again, you see a lot of times too with this that they just don't block the interior pass rushers. So depending on what type of run you're calling, who your tight end is he on the running back side? Is he on the point of attack side? It's just very, very difficult. So inside zones are obviously out. Now let's go ahead and get back into that outside zone, because this is where you guys are going to make a lot of hay with the run game here. So this bunch tight end offense, which you guys can find on Gridiron Game Plans, I think this is the best counter meta offense in the game for double mug. When you run off tackle, this is an outside zone. So rather than kind of wedging inside and just blocking a guy that's in your area, you're going to notice a pronounced effect of the offensive line taking a step to block this outside. So you see that this basically bottles up all those interior players, and we're able to capture the edge very, very easily with this run call. And it doesn't matter whether or not they're running the 6-man man-to-man version, or if they want to set up a setup that maybe looks something like this, where they turn it into like a zone. A lot of players will run this as a 4-man zone and, you know, just create some hybrid looks out of this. You'll constantly see stuff that looks like this right here. And when you call this outside zone, you're going to notice that the offensive line constantly blocks this correctly. You're going to be able to capture the edge. Now, in the version of the game that allowed the spin move, this was a house call style run. Now, this is going to be very, very annoying to defend either way because it actually blocks well. So again, top-down view right here, kind of take a look at the Jets offensive line and how they all take a step to the left side, which means that all that interior penetration doesn't matter. We're going to be able to capture the edge. You notice that the wide receiver is able to block. The tackle gets up to that second level. We're able to go laterally. And then, you know, obviously, if you have a little bit of stick work, you can cut this back inside, juke inside. The spin is still okay. It's not as OP as it used to be, but this run is very, very good. And this is kind of the scheme that in general is going to get you the most effect with this. So I do want to illustrate that there is a difference between a shotgun outside zone and an under center outside zone. So let's say right here that I wanted to go into my old favorite offense, probably my favorite offense ever, the single back bunch X nasty. And they have this wide zone style run. With this, you got a couple things. Like I've already mentioned, we have the read and react AI, where I can only call this basically once or twice before the game auto run commits. But then you're oftentimes going to see that you're not really going to get the blocking that you're wanting with these under center versions of this run. Now, in this case, you know, we might be able to go outside zone to the left. Now, if this works, wonderful. That's the point of this video, is to teach you guys how to run the ball in this meta. But again, you're going to see that, you know, this is an easy gap for the user. A lot of times they'll even just click off, even if they aren't super confident. So you'll see sometimes they'll come down here and mug. And then when you run the ball, they're just going to do this and click off. And then that's going to end up being, you know, very, very tough to run the ball. So not really great there. If I wanted to motion my tight end across here, again, you're still going to have kind of that issue where, you know, this guy's on the tight end now. Now, in this particular context, you're going to have, you know, probably the user come down here. A lot of times with this, the problem is just that they don't block this correctly. And again, you just see that those guys hanging out. So the under center versions of this run are a little bit less productive. I would honestly say that if you do want to run like outside zone, you probably want to stick more to like I-form style stretches that are just going to give you a little bit of more protection. So what I mean by that is, let's say here that your opponent is, you know, probably going to use the guy that's on the fullback. And with this, you could kind of run behind a fullback a little bit better. You know, again, though, you still see it's very, very difficult. Again, I'm going to kind of come down here, just kind of stand in this spot, you know, trying to run it here to the point of attack. Maybe a little bit better that direction. You see right there, we're able to capture the edge. So I'm going to say if you're going to be under center, probably employ a fullback. But let's go ahead and get back into the shotgun here, because there was another version of the outside zone I want to share with you guys. So you see, obviously, bunch tight end in the Seattle playbook, we have the off tackle. There's another formation known as trips running back weak. And with this, again, you want to follow the same rules. Ideally, you want the running back on the throwing arm side of the quarterback. So with this, we now have a situation where we're going to be outnumbered by a substantial margin here in the box, because again, most players are going to mug 7 guys across the line. We only have a 5-man line here. We have receivers out wide. Now, of course, if it's man-to-man, it's going to be pretty obvious. You're going to see it just looks like everyone in off coverage, you know, about 7 yards off the line of scrimmage. And, you know, it looks like straight up man across the board. When we run the outside zone, though, notice how we are able to very easily prevent any interior players from coming in untouched to hit the running back right away. This is a direct contrast to if we, for instance, ran the inside zone. So, you know, again, this off tackle style run is so great for you in that you're going to be able to block the point of attack. And you see that even when you have a player that is able to kind of, you know, get through the middle untouched, because it is an outside zone rather than an inside zone, it doesn't necessarily matter. So you see right here how Fred Warner shoots this gap. But again, because it's an outside zone, the tackle is blocking down so much on this that he's able to just get a little bit of a chip. And then you're out there on the perimeter and you just need to make one guy miss and you're able to move, okay? So pretty good stuff here in this regard. Now, of course, there are gonna be other types of outside zones in the game that you should be aware of. In fact, there are some RPOs that you guys can, if you really have a keen eye for the type of blocking, find some outside zone style RPOs. And keep in mind, those are gonna be a little bit more read and react AI proof. If you don't know what read and react AI is, this is basically what makes the defense just shed the run the second or third time you call it. RPOs do not have that logic for the defense because they are defending a run and a pass at the same time. So you don't want the linebackers or the corners instantly jumping down because there might be a bubble screen or a slant. So they don't have that coding. So what you could do is you could go into your play types, go to RPOs, and start to search for outside zone style RPOs. Now, the best way that I can illustrate the difference between an inside zone RPO and an outside zone style RPO is the yellow arrow of the running back. So I want you to take a look here at this left play call, motion read bubble. You're gonna notice that the yellow arrow on the running back is kind of up and inside. That's gonna tell you that the run scheme is an inside zone blocking scheme. If you were to contrast that with, say, the yellow line that is on the play in the middle, RPO read flat wheel, this is more of an outside zone style handoff. You see that the running back is basically laterally taking the handoff because we're going outside with this, with the opportunity to cut back inside if the defense overextends. So what you would ideally look for is an RPO that has kind of that run blocking that you want. Now, I don't like that in RPO read flat wheel. If I want to run outside zone left, I obviously have the tight end on the left running a slide route. So I don't want that. I'm not running this with the intent to really block this up correctly. So what you guys want to do is look for outside zone RPO. So for instance, we have this RPO peak stick. Let's go ahead and call this because this appears to be an outside zone RPO. So our opponents are going to come down here and they're going to kind of set up like so. You see here with this, that this is an outside zone, but again, you notice that it kind of takes your running back on a track. This has been something that EA has added into the game for RPOs, where they don't really give you that immediate control. So you're gonna see here that I can run this and it's actually gonna block it up correctly, but I'm on a track. Now, as bad as that looks, the track is way worse when you guys run this away from the quarterback's handedness. So we were running with a right-handed quarterback, the running back on the right side of the right-handed quarterback. Now let's go ahead and run it the other direction. You're gonna see that this actually is so much worse. In fact, this came through completely unblocked. So you don't wanna necessarily go with those types of RPOs and run it against your quarterback's throwing arm, okay? Just something that's food for thought. Not a lot of players talk about stuff like this. Don't really lab the run like that. We have another version right here, RPO alert shock. So let's go ahead and call that. With this RPO alert shock, you're gonna notice that, again, gonna be an outside zone style RPO. Not every RPO is created the same. You might see that it's an outside zone, but you might get a different locomotion of the running back. So try to test all these out. I'll be honest, I actually haven't run this one, but I just know it's an outside zone based off of the play art. And you see right here, you could actually, have a chance. Again, that little like hesitation up inside allowed the backside pursuit, which sucks. But also keep in mind too, that unless the user's like super down in the down in the junk with it, you can still have the ability to maybe bounce this outside. It's when they come down and they just outnumber you. Right here, we're outnumbered 7-5. So a positive run against this front is gravy. I mean, it really is. You can start to do some like motion stuff. You see right here, you can, kind of get yourself the ability to block. Not always going to be great for you, but again, at least you're not getting a guy straight through the middle hitting your quarterback back like you saw a couple snaps ago. So just try to take a look and find your outside zone style runs. Those are going to be really, really helpful. Another one right here, RPO bubble Y pop. We'll just run one more here and then we'll call the video because I think we got the point across here. Again, try to find the ones that are going to give you guys the outside handoff with the best locomotion possible. If you guys can find those, it's going to help significantly. Right there, we just had to shed from 99. That one allowed me to bounce it a little bit. You will notice our RPOs are much slower this year. And like I said, the running backs you know, you don't get immediate control. It does take a second. But again, you see right here that, you know, if that user's obviously not scraping across right there, we are definitely able to capture the edge with most of these runs. So hopefully this was informational for you guys. Best runs in the game by a mile are going to be your shotgun outside zones with multiple tight ends, because that's going to prevent read and react AI. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, this is Zan. Get the lab in. Good luck.